Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of the Haunted Walk, offering ghost tours and paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario, and online experiences to anyone in this mortal realm. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director, and we thank you for joining us for this episode. Go to almost any city around the world and ask, what are some of the most famous haunted spots there? Some may tell you about the creepy house on the hill, where faces appear in the windows. Others may mention the barn that's been abandoned for years and is a popular spooky spot for teenagers looking for a scare. Plenty of people will tell you about that old building downtown, perhaps a museum or historic site where a woman in white is often seen wandering the halls. But no matter where you go and who you ask, someone is bound to tell you about a haunted hotel. Haunted Walks knows all about haunted hotels. We could even call ourselves a bit of an expert. We featured them frequently on our ghost tours, have written blog posts about the creepiest places to stay, hosted virtual haunted campfires where people have told us about the hotels in their communities, and we've even recorded previous podcast episodes where the main feature is scary places to check in for the night. The stories are numerous, with countless witnesses peppered throughout the accounts, adding mountains of new evidence all the time and building the lore of these supposedly haunted spots. The tales are also incredibly diverse, and no one account is quite like another. With so many people passing in and out of these buildings on their way to or from one place to the next, it's no wonder they are frequently haunted. Hotels are often the backdrop for sudden deaths, unexplained demises, and restless spirits who suddenly find themselves far from home. There is truth to the famous song lyric in the Eagles' Hotel California, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." Word of paranormal encounters seems to travel as fast as people do. They're passed through word of mouth, written about on trip review sites, and are some of the most memorable stories in paranormal books. But it isn't just the number and frequency of these stories that makes them stick in our minds. In fact, some of the scariest ghost stories with the longest legacies take place in hotels, leaving these warm, home-away-from homes with terrifying reputations that sometimes even keep veteran ghost hunters away. In the lead-up to Halloween 2022, we invite you to find a quiet spot and turn off all the lights as we bring you some classic ghost stories from Central Canada, featuring a notoriously haunted hotel that has been the subject of countless books, articles, investigations, reports, and podcasts. A place that has attracted people from near and far, compelling paranormal enthusiasts to pack their bags for a stay at one of Canada's, and perhaps the world's, most haunted spots. Let's go together to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and explore some of the stories from the Fort Garry Hotel. But before we get to that, it is the big Halloween weekend, and we could not be more excited. We have lots of different ways for you to join us and take part in the Halloween fun. If you're in or around Kingston, Ottawa, or Toronto, we have 13 different paranormal adventures for you to try. And there is no better time of year. For those of you a little further away, we have 2 other paranormal experiences that you can try. We have one more virtual haunted campfire left on Saturday, October 29th, where Giovanni Albasio from Salem's Haunted Footsteps Ghost Tours will be joining us live to share the ghost stories and dark history of one of the most iconic Halloween destinations. And if you're looking for something even spookier, I would recommend trying our haunting at home. This is something you can also do in the comfort of your home that will allow you to think and engage with the paranormal. For information about our in-person ghost tours, our virtual haunted campfires, and the haunting at home, please visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. And don't forget, as a Haunted Talks listener, you can save 10% off your ghost tour tickets by using the promo code Haunted Talks, all one word, Haunted Talks at checkout. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Haunted Walk, for our latest news, updates, and favorite funny memes. And if you would like to give us a little treat this Halloween, please recommend Haunted Talks to anyone you know who might be in the mood for a spooky story. And leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen to us is another great way to let people know you're enjoying the show. Let's start by setting the scene. If you've been to many North American cities, you've probably seen a hotel like the Fort Garry. You know the kind. Those turn-of-the-century structures that have an unmistakable presence on the main street, standing taller than other historic buildings around it. A red carpet is usually rolled out in front, the luxurious interiors glimmering just beyond huge windows. The Fort Garry Hotel is one of those buildings, having graced the streets of Winnipeg since 1913. As we'll learn, however, it didn't take long for the building to gain a notorious reputation as one of the city's most haunted spots. Like many old Canadian hotels, the Fort Garry was a railroad hotel, built by the Grand Trunk Railroad just before the outbreak of the First World War. Canada's economy was booming, and there was time and money for leisure travel for the upper and middle classes. Railroad hotels began to spring up across Canada, funded, designed, and constructed by the rail companies to promote cross-Canada travel. The purpose of these hotels was to create a single company experience. A traveler could book passage on a rail line, the most common and fastest form of long-distance travel, and then stay at the railroad-owned hotels during their visits across the country. The hotels were rather luxurious for their time, but also offered more economical rooms for a new class of travelers, often young middle-class people excited to see the sights. Soon, the Fort Garry Hotel was attracting crowds of guests, local residents, and curious onlookers. Most were intending to stay at the hotel, of course, but others began gathering over the years to catch a glimpse of the supposed ghosts. Yes, the Fort Garry Hotel is supposedly haunted by not a single restless spirit, but multiple ghosts, many of whom are now famous legends. If you find yourself in Winnipeg and you're curious about the Fort Garry Hotel and want to catch a glimpse of something unexplained for yourself, we'd recommend that you head to the second floor. While spirits have been spotted throughout the property, the second floor has the highest concentration of activity and is usually the site of the most famous encounters. In fact, there is a specific room that you might want to try and book: the infamous 202. It is unclear when the activity in this room started, but it is very well documented. It's no wonder that paranormal enthusiasts often request this room on purpose. People staying in 202 are frequently woken up in the middle of the night. Some describe a ghostly presence in the room, but don't witness any figures or hear any voices. Simply the unmistakable feeling of being watched by an unseen presence. Others have woken up to find a woman or man in period dress standing at the end of their bed, staring at them with unflinching eyes. After a few moments, the figures completely vanish, leaving the bewildered guests to try to figure out what they just saw. Others have heard unexplained footsteps in the room, softly moving from spot to spot. At different times, the footsteps are more aggressive, almost a wet sloshing sound coming from the direction of the bathroom, as if someone has just exited the tub. A few people have heard the muffled sounds of crying coming from inside the room or just outside in the hall. The small closet also has a concentration of activity, where some have seen the door swing open on its own, witnessed the light go on and off, and heard the distinct sound of metal hangers being moved from side to side. But probably the most chilling story frequently experienced by people staying in room 202 is the feeling that someone is on or in the bed with them while they are sleeping. As we'll hear about later, this is one of the most unique and frequently documented experiences at the hotel. It is not just guests that experience things in the famously haunted room. About a decade ago, the Winnipeg Free Press reported that cleaners of room 202 had seen liquid that appears to be blood running down the walls. The reputation of the room was so well known among staff that some refused to even go near it. It was also reported that the windows of the famously haunted room are often shattered or need to be frequently replaced. While guests often describe a rather positive or benevolent spirit, accounts from staff seem to indicate a much more violent guest. The precise identity of the ghost haunting room 202 is unclear, but the backstory of the supposed restless spirit is a matter of frequent speculation. The local story is that not long after the hotel opened, a young bride was experiencing a headache and sent her husband out to get pills that might finally grant her some relief. During his time away, he was tragically struck by a tram or carriage and was instantly killed. The young woman was so distraught she apparently committed suicide in the room, although the exact method is a mystery. According to this legend, her spirit is still waiting for her husband to return. The details of the story have never been verified with official records or newspaper articles, but even the Fort Garry Hotel has suggested the backstory is likely based on at least some truth. The tragic end of this couple might explain why so many people have experienced figures in and around the bed, and even heard the sounds of crying. Of course, tragic young couples are a frequent feature in ghost stories, especially from hotels. One of the most famous cases is probably the Banff Springs Hotel in Banff, Alberta, where a bride apparently haunts the main ballrooms after tragedy struck on her wedding day. We learned all about that story during our virtual haunted campfire in the winter of 2022 with the Banff and Canmore Ghost Walks, and you can still access that recording on our website. Back to Winnipeg. If you go stay at the hotel, but don't manage to get assigned into room 202, or it's otherwise unavailable, don't worry. There are plenty of other experiences you may have with a ghost. Online reviews for the hotel reveal a growing collection of experiences from ordinary guests. Everything from hot and cold spots to unexplained noises, to the sensation of a restless presence in the middle of the night. It seems like people are constantly having experiences in this hotel, and many are choosing to come to the famous Winnipeg Inn and possibly have an encounter of their own. But remember, it's not just hotel guests who have had experiences. In fact, one of the owners, Ida Elbow, had a famous encounter with something that's possibly paranormal. Ida and her husband Richard lived in the Fort Garry for a time. One night, the couple were having an argument, and Ida crawled into the bed to sleep it off. After a short time, she could see a figure, which she presumed was her husband, enter the room and sit on the bed. Although her back was turned, she felt the distinct pressure of someone sitting down beside her. Assuming her husband was there to talk about the issue or make peace, Ida turned to face the figure, but there was absolutely no one there. Her husband wasn't even in the room. What's more, this didn't even happen on the second floor. Supposedly, Ida's room was room 528 when the unexplained incident occurred, providing evidence that paranormal activity at the Fort Garry isn't confined to a single floor. Perhaps more chilling, this story seems to almost precisely match the experience of Brenda Chamberlain, a member of Parliament at the time, who had never heard that the hotel was haunted before her famous stay in 2000. Brenda was staying at the Fort Garry Hotel and was awakened in the middle of the night by the distinct pressure of someone laying in the bed next to her. Since she was staying alone at the time, Brenda jumped out of the bed, fearful that someone might be in her room. She turned on the light to see there was absolutely no one beside her. Frightened but reassured by the empty bed, Brenda tried to fall back to sleep. Only 45 minutes later, she was awakened again by the same distinct feeling of someone next to her. At the time, she described it as, "It was like someone was setting into a position next to me, like my husband, only lighter. I actually felt the bed move." She told a colleague about the strange incident and was told the hotel was supposedly haunted. It was only after sharing her story with the press did she learn of Ida's almost identical encounter. Brenda's story made national headlines at the time, but she was very hesitant about even coming forward with the tale. A very vocal skeptic, Brenda refused to say that the experience was something paranormal, even though she didn't have an alternative explanation. She only reluctantly shared what had happened to her, recognizing her colleagues in Parliament would chide her for years. However, for people who truly believed the hotel was haunted, Brenda the skeptic's encounter was further, very convincing proof that someone was still staying at the hotel long after their checkout time had passed. Famous people who have unexplained encounters tend to hold a bit more weight when we're evaluating ghost stories. Perhaps that's because they're putting their reputation on the line, or maybe because we, as a society, tend to believe celebrities more than ordinary people. That could explain why people are so fascinated with sports figures who have ghostly encounters. Last year, some of you might remember the episode we did on the game of baseball and its connections with the paranormal, including stories of baseball players who had encounters in hotels while traveling on the road. That's episode 108, Field of Frights. So many of the hotels featured on that episode, such as the Fitzer Hotel in Milwaukee, have spooky reputations because recognizable players have told unbelievable stories of paranormal encounters. If you go back and have a listen, some of their experiences sound a lot like what is happening at the Fort Garry. How do so many ghost stories get tied to hotels? Do the owners and managers of these places have something to do with their haunted reputations, thinking they might gain some kind of competitive edge? Actually, most hotels shy away from ghost stories that might be attached to their rooms. There is a stigma associated with hauntings, and some hotels are concerned their business may be impacted, as some people purposely stay away from haunted spots. Speculating that your property might be haunted might also lead to unpopular attention, and hotels are usually careful not to damage their image in the community. However, other hotels tend to embrace their stories and even use it in their marketing. Over the years, the Fort Garry Hotel has done a bit of both, occasionally featuring ghost stories in their advertising, but mostly not speaking about it directly. However, given the number of times the hotel has been featured in ghost stories, no manager or owner can ever fully hide the fact that so many people have had strange encounters in the hotel. Sometimes this reputation has led to repeat guests who want to have encounters with the paranormal. It was reported by the hotel that a woman from Thunder Bay, Ontario, used to come and stay regularly. She insisted on staying in the same room, even when she was offered free upgrades. She always insisted on booking the same room because that's where, according to her, the spirits would come visit her at night. If she knew it, she never revealed the identity of the ghost, but did report it appeared to her, a woman in a long ball gown, at the end of her bed, and the spirit usually disappeared out the window. A woman in a long white dress has been spotted throughout the hotel by different people, which has prompted a few sleuths to do some research. Who is this mysterious woman who seems to frequent the old hotel? Many people believe it's someone who attended the opening of the Fort Garry Hotel in 1913. A woman named Lady Macmillan supposedly attended the grand event, and there are accounts that she wore a long white brocade dress. To people who have seen the ghostly figure, Lady Macmillan is apparently a possible match. Why she is still at the hotel, well over a century later, is unknown. A striking part of the stories from the Fort Garry Hotel is that most of them take place in individual rooms. Those are probably the creepiest stories because unsuspecting guests are often woken up in the middle of the night. Being startled awake by something unexplained is a base human fear, so we hold on to those stories and pass them along more eagerly. It's probably why Brenda Chamberlain came out about her experience, even though she was a strong skeptic. But just because the ghosts at the Fort Garry Hotel seem to favor individual rooms doesn't mean they don't sometimes get spotted doing things in more public areas. One of the oddest stories comes from the hotel itself, who noted a strange experience by a security guard. One night, the overnight guard was doing their rounds. They came upon a locked ballroom that wasn't in use for the night. Earlier in the shift, the ballroom was observed to be completely empty, and everything appeared normal. However, later in the shift, the security guard opened the still locked ballroom to find 10 candles perfectly arranged in the shape of a star. The guard swore that absolutely no one had access to the room throughout the night. They had no explanation for how the candles could have arranged themselves inside a locked room. Another ghost has been apparently spotted in the Palm Lounge for years, but the story seems to be a bit more of a fractured legend. Supposedly, a performer from the days of old still roams around the lounge, a place where he frequently played when he was alive. The performer met a very untimely end after being supposedly shot in the head by a single bullet. When his spirit is around the lounge, guests experience sudden pains in their head, right in the spot where the man was shot. Like many ghost stories, this one has taken on some mythical qualities, and it's unclear how much is fact or embellished fiction. There are also vague reports of a phantom diner who shows up for meals occasionally. While no one knows who that spirit could be, it's been spotted by hotel staff and other diners from time to time, and the story is still frequently passed around. The staff at the Fort Garry Hotel are apparently aware of the ghostly stories surrounding their place of work. It seems that some of them believe the tales wholeheartedly and even report on their experiences. Everywhere from anonymous online forums to popular news media. Others brush them off, characterizing themselves as skeptics or people who simply believe in good practical jokes. But the hotel had to internally deal with the hauntings, and there must be a lot of guests asking about them. Apparently, requests about the ghosts of the Fort Garry Hotel are so frequent that as recent as 2017, the hotel has provided sheets with events and descriptions of the ghostly activity to any inquiring minds. The Fort Garry Hotel Ghost Story Collection is the perfect way to celebrate our favorite time of the year. As we've heard, it's a growing list of classic paranormal tales, from unseen presences, strange sounds, and sightings of ghostly figures. But it also has its own unique twists. Ghosts that like to sit on or in the bed with guests, spirits that cause blood to run down the walls, and women in ball gowns spotted throughout the property. The combination of all these weird encounters, verified and experienced time and time again, make the Fort Garry Hotel undoubtedly one of Canada's most haunted spots. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you have stayed at the Fort Garry Hotel and had anything strange happen to you, we would love to hear about that. Please connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, all at Haunted Walk, and let us know what happened to you. For information about our in-person ghost tours and paranormal adventures, as well as our virtual haunted campfire and the Haunting at Home online paranormal adventure, please visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. And be sure to use the promo code HauntedTalks, all one word, at checkout to get 10% off your ghost tour tickets. If you'd like to give us a little treat in our trick-or-treat bag this Halloween season, we would really appreciate a 5-star review wherever you listen to us. Be sure to follow or subscribe to the show there as well. And of course, if you know someone in your life, friends, family, random strangers on the internet who would like to hear some spooky stories around Halloween, we hope you will recommend Haunted Talks to them. As always, a special thanks to our Haunted Talks team, including our writer and researcher for this episode, Brittany Buss, and Michelle Dennis, our outstanding audio editor. Until we meet again, sweet dreams.